Okay, so we're going to be doing the dog walking problem, and this is the problem they have. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this and plop it into Notepad++ to make our life a little bit easier. So it's $5 an hour weekday, $10 on the weekend, same as the other one. It's number of dogs times the number of hours that they're walked, and that's how they pay. So what we need to do is, it says I want a receipt after walking the dogs that shows this. So we're going to copy that. And then we're going to come down here and we're going to create our problem statement. And that is assumptions, scope, whoops, constants, input, calculations, come on, calculations, and logic. I'm going to put logic out here because we have decisions on this. Your logic is always in your calculation section, so might as well comment it that way. And then we have output. Great. So the first thing we start is with output. And we can see we have the number of dogs first, and I need to camel that. So we don't need the, and I'm just going to call this num dogs. Okay, so that's our first output. And again, we're cameling these. Next one is num hours. This is kind of how we did it the first time we did the dog problem when it didn't have a decision. And then we have something new here, and that is the rate charged. And let's just call that rate. And the amount of customers have to pay. And let's call that final fee. Come on now, final fee. All right, so that we have that. The next thing we have to do is move up to our constants, because we can see that we have a $5 constant and we have a $10 constant. So we'll put that in here. And that is, we have a weekday rate. And that is going to be equal to 5. And then the weekend rate. And that's going to be equal to 10. So now that we've gotten those things, again, those are easy to do because it tells us what we want out and it tells us what our constants are. And now we have to take a look at this. So the number of dogs and number of hours, someone has to tell us that. So I'm going to copy that and paste that into input. A little space here. The rate and the final fee is something I have to determine. So the rate is done by logic. The fee is by calculations. So I'll copy those two and paste them in here. And then give myself some space. All right, so now that we have everything all set up, the next thing we have to do is determine what our final calculation is. And it's the same as what we used last time, except the rate is going to change. So it's going to be the number of dogs times the number of hours times the rate. And the rate, that's exactly the math we used last time. The problem is on this one, the rate changes. So the rate is dependent upon whether it's a weekday or weekend. So I'm going to say, use some logic on that and say, well, if weekday equals yes, meaning that it's a weekday, then we know that the rate is going to be equal to the weekday rate. Right? That makes sense. If they say yes to weekday, now where am I going to get the yes and no? Of course, that has to be an input. So weekday is going to be an input, and then I'm going to put out here parentheses. Whenever we know what we want the person to type in, we're going to place it in parentheses just to remind us. So we want them to type in yes, not capital yes, but small yes. If I put this as a capital, then I would put that as a capital yes. So be careful when you're telling your user what you want them to type in, because if you type in a capital yes here and then use a small yes here, when they type in capital yes, it's going to be no. So yes, be careful. So if you want to use capitals here, make sure you use capitals here because the case matters. Okay, so what happens if they didn't say yes? So we don't do another if saying if weekday equals no. Instead, we say else. So else means they didn't say yes. And for that, the rate is going to be equal to the weekend rate. And again, look how nice. Let's see. So weekend rate. And because we're using Notepad++, we're just selecting those names. So now we have all that. Next thing we want to do is do the flow chart, and I'm going to do that in a separate one. But see how quickly and easy that is? Grab your output, grab your constants, then copy your output to either input or calculation/logic. Then, starting with your last math, do that, and then move your way up. When you do that, you're going to end up with the most efficient one. All right, so let's go ahead and save this.